Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Crinkle Club. I'm comfortably Crinkly.
I am Miss Mummy.
And we may owe you all an apology again because we took a little hiatus during season 2 again. I think that was the second one. But in fairness, we're not exactly Joe Rogan. We're not contracted to Spotify to release a podcast as much as we love doing it. But I think in recent months, it's been 2 months, and I think life just kind of got in the way a little bit. So a couple of weeks after the last episode, I had to have surgery, so I've been recovering from that. I think we're both currently in physio at the moment, which is a sign of the times. We both celebrated birthdays actually
recently,
within a week of each other, which is quite surreal. And we finally managed to get back together and sit around the table and decide on a topic. So we're back, and so today we thought we'd talk a little bit about kind of headspaces, like regression headspace, little space, but just generally that kind of inner mind sensation that some people achieve and some people don't and some people yearn for, and just maybe our own experiences from very different sides of the coin, I guess, and kind of how it's achieved or what people search for. So Miss Mummy, obviously in your line of work you probably have a lot of people come to you that are yearning to regress, and appreciate we did the regression obsession episode in season 1, but you know, I guess is there a pressure bestowed upon you and other kind of professional caregivers to enable people to get into a headspace, or do you not really see it like that?
It's a lot my job to take people to different headspaces, but also I say that it's not necessary to get into the headspace for enjoying the experience. There are people who come to me and they don't necessarily want to regress. They have no interest in that. They just want to dress in a particular way, wear the nappies, but they're not looking for a set of behaviors. And there is this very interesting, because there are so many layers and so many aspects and so many sides about regression. The way I support it is by introducing a beginning and an end of that period of possible regression, let's say, of baby play, in which some people do feel that they are really in a baby space and they don't have a care in the world other than what they're doing.
So is that beginning and end kind of a moment to get into the headspace and then a moment at the end to kind of safely come back out of it? Or?
You know, they say, and you know that also as a parent, like, children and babies, they need routines.
They need what?
They need routines.
Routines. Oh,
routines.
100%,
so I get into the routine, which is that we get into ritual, actually. So at the beginning, we will do our routine to get into the headspace in which I will be talking to them. It's like a meditation. Some people have asked me if it's hypnosis, and don't think it is, but it can have an impact in the sense that this is the beginning. And from here now we open our eyes, and then when we open our eyes, we are back. We are back into that space of headspace of a baby. But it doesn't mean that you are totally there. Some people wake up from that, let's say, absolutely transformed into a baby in an incredible way, and others not so much. But what I say, and they also recognize as they go, is that sometimes for some people it's not just because you did this action at the beginning that marks the start of it. Playing with them, interacting with them, giving them a plush toy, letting them, I mean, all those interactions with me help them put in the position of the baby, just because of the way that I'm dealing with them, and that supports the regression.
So, I mean, that resonates tremendously, because I mean, I've said, and many other people have said, it's very difficult to be little on your own. Having somebody there that can kind of confirm your status and that you can bounce your energy off of and have it all reaffirmed makes it a ton easier. You obviously mentioned that you've got customers that don't actually want to regress. They're probably more on the DL side of the slash, so to speak. But have you had clients that have come and really deeply fallen into that headspace and not necessarily struggled to come out of it, but have kind of, well, how do I articulate this? Just like really, really submersed themselves into that, allowed themselves to kind of enter that headspace, and then sort of come out of it the other side, not confused, but kind of cloudy and like, wow, what was that? That was incredible.
I'm going to say 50% of that.
Oh wow!
Not of the clients. The
Okay.
clients, majority of them. But what I see is that I have not seen people who couldn't come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So going very deep, yes. Oh, sorry, I'm moving my leg. Going very deep, yes. Getting very, very, very deep into it, absolutely. But I didn't explain. We come out of it also. So at the end, we would perform other kind of actions or things that I've been saying, and that is the way in which we mark that routine of coming out of the headspace.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you find clients will put too much pressure on themselves? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to see a professional mummy, I've got this number of hours, I absolutely have to feel tiny. Do people do that to themselves?
Yes. Some people, not all people.
Of
Some
course.
people come very confident and they don't have a problem and they just want to have a fun experience, and they're not putting themselves into pressure if they regress, if they don't, because they know they like the activity, they like what they're going to be doing, and if they feel more regressed or less is not real the matter of the issue. And there are others who sometimes get, especially if it's the first time and they've never done it, really nervous about it. And could I do this? Could I do the other? How I want to feel? Am I going to regress enough? Which is like, how do you know that you have regressed enough?
I was about to ask that question. Define enough. Yeah,
Enough, define what's enough. And I always advise, don't worry, even if you don't regress and you're enjoying the activity, that's going to, I mean, it's like, to me, it's like meditate. It's like if you meditate, you cannot try to force regression. You can allow it. You allow that to happen. You welcome it. You play. You enjoy. When you're like a child,
Yeah.
that is what you have, the enjoyment, not the pressure of I have to be like a child. And even for the adult, there are people, other type of people that they do come inside and outside of the regressive space in the same session.
Yeah.
And I think that's really healthy, because that means they are allowing themselves to go with the flow. So they could be regressed and playing with something and be really deep into a headspace, and then stop and they just start talking about anything normally in their lives, just like an adult who wants to talk about something or analyze something, and then go back to baby. And I think that's better, because you're just letting yourself experience what your body is telling you is what is required at the moment.
I've heard some great stories from friends in the community where they've been deep in little space and their phone has rang. And they're like, oh, it's an important work call, I've got to quickly pick it up, and they'll just snap out of it, go into work mode, and then fall back into little space. And it's
Well,
sensational
we
dichotomy.
tried that. The mobile phones are off.
That would make
unless
sense
it's absolutely necessary.
in a session like that, for sure.
Yeah, but most of the times I would say that anxiety is more in your head when you're not doing it. But actually, once you see yourself there, maybe you're scared because you think it's going to be difficult, because you don't know the carer. I'm not talking in general, not just me, but any carer. But if this is well done and it's done with real care and attention, it's not going to be that difficult. Our job is to make it easy.
Mm-hmm. It just requires the person to relax, I guess. That's where it starts.
Yeah, but if they don't relax, it is my job to help that person to relax, so they don't have to worry about not relaxing.
Yeah, good point.
And many times, I get kind of, I wouldn't say demands, but prerequisites or ideas of people, like I really must this, or I really want from do that or the other, and that gives me information about that mental state of that person, their expectations. But many times, once they're in my presence and they see themselves doing or not doing, and the way they're being handled, this just goes. This disappears.
Do you hear many stories from clients about, trying to be little on their own, or trying to regress on their own and struggling or succeeding?
Yes, and I have assessed some of that online, people who would come online, not necessarily for a session, but to talk about it.
Okay.
To say, I want to get into little space and I don't get. But this is very similar to saying, I don't want to have anything in my mind and I don't want to have thoughts.
Yeah,
and I'm
true.
having thoughts.
Yeah.
But there are ways around it, and I like those challenges. I like to work with that, or to support, maybe give some ideas, what kind of routine you can give to yourself. How do you get into a little space? What do you do before? How do you prepare it? Because this is a lot, for me, it's preparation of this thing. In the moment you are putting, not even a diaper, but preparing a towel, preparing your things, putting everything in place, that's already part of the regression. And if you are on your own, you can decide what is your bedtime routine. Have you thought about it? Have you established what are you going to do it and how are you going to do it? Plus, first is fun, just to stop and make those decisions, and then do it according to how you have done it. Where are you going to put your plusters? What are you going to wear? Is it clean? If it's not clean, I mean, all those little things to prepare for that moment, that's special. They are going to help you get into a mind space that you have been curating.
So that's actually a really good point. I would imagine a majority of our listeners will kind of embark or indulge in this solo a lot of the time. So that kind of, not that we're an advice podcast, but that kind of insight is probably really helpful to people to kind of think, well, okay, if you know that you've got an afternoon or an evening to yourself and you're able to kind of indulge this, kind of what tips do you give to people if they know they're going to be playing by themselves, they kind of want to reach some kind of little space or some kind of soft headspace, whether it be bath time and bedtime routine, or whether it be just a general kind of tummy time routine or something like that. Is that kind of your advice to them? Is think about the kind of things that you'd want to experience, think about what accessories you'd need or what you'd need nearby, make sure everything's kind of clean and smelling fresh and laid out ready to go, and then just kind of create your own or manifest your own routine?
You're very good at summarizing.
Oh, bless you.
I think I would say thinking on the things is a good one, but I would say listen to your body. If I want to do it for myself and I want to have on my birthday that special evening, maybe I make sure that my house is clean. I put the stands that I want to put. Maybe I want to have some candles, because that's me. It doesn't maybe help another person. I put the music that I want to hear. I prepare my bath, because I love baths. So there is a number of things that I could prepare for myself. So this is just the same. I couldn't say give yourself a belly rub, because not knowing the person, I don't know, maybe they don't like a belly rub. It's difficult not to like a belly rub, but it's what is more important is the interoception, which is being aware of your body. Know what your body notices, what your body feels, what you really want, and follow that. Preparing is good, and also personally, I do like to initiate and to finish with a very clear, like a key, no? That is anchor the beginning and anchor the ending. Okay. That is what I say. And follow your body. And if your body says nothing to you, listen to your body more often. Just notice if there's a tiny movement, if there is a part of your body when you think about doing something that relaxes more or moves more or tells you, this is how is it that we feel things that we want.
No, I love the idea of kind of linking it to just general relaxation techniques. So, if you were going to just have a nice chilled evening, you might put on some soft music, you'll run yourself a bath, you'll light some candles, get some incense, and just go, these are all the things that I enjoy that relax me.
Miss Mummy enjoys, yes.
Yeah. So, you're quite. So, if you were looking to indulge in some kind of little play or little activity by yourself, then, doing the same thing. Just understanding the kind of things that you want, the kind of things that you would desire or enjoy, and I guess the more you do it, the more you learn. And I've found myself recently kind of, we'll call it sitting in the silence quite a lot. And obviously following surgery, I was off work for a while, so had a lot of time to just kind of sit around and relax. And one thing I found a lot of comfort in was lo-fi music, which I'd never really heard of, if I'm entirely honest. But I think it's low fidelity. But essentially, it's music only. There's no lyrics. There's no singing. There isn't really any kind of repetitive beat. It's kind of jazz-like in that sense. But there's some, like, I guess, hip-hop beats merged into it. But just as a bit of background music, because it doesn't take your focus at all, but it just kind of fills that silence a little bit. It's very relaxing, very calming. I've taken a huge amount of comfort in that recently. But I've certainly been guilty in the past of asking various smart speakers to play, you know, instrumental nursery rhymes and things like that, and just have like the music you'd get from a baby cot mobile. And just listen to that and zone out. And obviously YouTube and the likes are full of ASMR, whether it's like mummy or daddy ASMR or ABDL ASMR. So there's certainly ways to kind of fill the silence, but I think you're right, the idea of listening to your body, and also again just through repetition, just finding what works, what doesn't work, things you enjoy, and just kind of trying to make it as authentically yours as can be, really, because just because one person gets satisfaction from one thing doesn't mean everyone does.
And also that have in mind that unless you are doing that to go to sleep and your little session ends up with your sleep, you're going to have to come out of that.
Very true. So
you also have to design how you're going to do it. And it's probably better not to do it, especially if you went into a very deep place, not abrupt. So it's like slowly find your way out of it. And what actions? It did happen with someone. We were doing an online session, and it occurred to me that one of the ways to come out, there are many ways to come out, but one of the ways is like imagine I am regressing, I'm the little girl, I'm a little girl playing, doing a number of things, I'm calming down, I'm going to fall asleep. Oh, I'm going to put to bed the little girl. She is in bed. I am now the adult putting my little girl to bed.
Oh, you switched on yourself, essentially.
So I switch on myself, and then I feel that differentiation between my regular me, but
you
the
become
little
your
girl,
own caregiver.
But I'm actually caring for her, for that little girl inside me, which is very therapeutic, by the way.
That's fantastic.
And
healing your inner child is
we do that
those things.
in child work sometimes. And then I put her to bed. She's in bed. She's lovely. I will come back at another point. Good night. And then I continue.
That's really, really powerful.
So I think that's really beautiful. It stays with me. Yeah.
I think that's something that I'm guilty of not doing is kind of having a kind of closure moment or an anchor point, I think you alluded to a second ago, where actually I go, okay, now this headspace is finished and I'm back in the real world. I just kind of force myself from one to the other.
It's because we talk a lot about regression, but not so much about de-regression. About coming back, coming out of it in a gentle way.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I've ever done that. Which now looking back on it, I possibly should have, and actually I've probably got some stories I can tell.
I wouldn't say should, but
yeah, I could have for sure. So
you can do, and I really recommend that, to find also your way out in a way that is gentle. That idea of the little girl that you put to bed is just one idea. There are different ways in which we do that. So I don't want one single person leaving my space in a mental space in which they cannot cope with the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
That is for safety also. Yeah. I mean, we need to de-regress. I love the word. Maybe some people would not love it because they want to stay all the time there. But come out of the headspace gently, being good to yourself, and then even though getting dressed and everything that I don't dress you back if you're coming back to adult. And then we have a little chat. So I can make sure that you're okay to drive or to get into transport, and also for them to have a bit of adult conversation. However, it's not the same person who comes in to the person who comes out.
Okay.
They don't, in general, come out to the same point where they're coming in, obviously, because you've been through a whole journey. You've been enjoying that headspace. You've been relaxing yourself. You've been getting all these beautiful sensations in your body. How can you get out of this? Yes, you can get out of this. But beautiful thing is that you can drag the good sensations and keep it with you.
So I guess people do turn up, especially if they've never been before, and they'll have maybe a bit of anxiety around it, a bit of nervousness, maybe a little bit of fear. And I guess when they come out of it, that all goes, and it's replaced by far more softer, happy kind of feelings.
It's a different face. Just the facial expression that you see is very different, and that is one of the, for me, is a big satisfaction to be a part of that, to be allowed to witness that. That I think that means a lot of trust of other people in me, and I try to honour that trust that I'm given.
But it's such a mindset thing for that person, right? Because we know obviously people feel that they don't have the right aesthetic or appearance or physical structure, and they're like, well, I couldn't possibly be little because of X, Y, Z. And it's like, well,
what is the physical structure?
To be fair, I've had it myself, and it's possibly something we could touch on another episode. But I mean, I've had it previously. So I mean, my story, as we've told many times, was for the vast majority of my life, I considered myself a DL, and then the AB side kind of came into it, and it was more paraphernalia based. It was more onesies and dummies and things like that.
Yeah.
But then that desire to be little, or to feel what that felt like, kind of came in, and I link that to just general stresses in life, and just thinking, do you know what, actually relinquishing control to somebody else and being kind of carefree feels wonderful. But I'd never experienced it. And I'd seen other people deep in headspaces, deep in little space. And I just thought, it looks and sounds incredible, but it's something that other people do. And I guess by the time I was at a stage in life where I kind of wanted to experience that, I was, mid to late 30s. I'm fairly heavily tattooed, probably weighed about 90 odd kilos, shaved head and bearded. So you think, I don't match the cutesy, small, babyish aesthetic that you see online. I think this is a big thing for people. They see these wonderful pastel nursery setups, and people that maybe suit the aesthetic more than they believe they do themselves, and think, oh, I could never be little, I could never regress because I don't look that certain way. Whereas actually, it really is all in your head. Like it's a case of going, I absolutely could regress, and I can allow myself to regress. And that's a word that you used earlier, which I'm definitely going to repeat over and over on this episode, I think. But that ability to allow yourself to do that, because it doesn't come from anybody else. And actually, the very first time I experienced little space was last year, and I entered into a kind of ABDL dynamic with somebody, and they reached out and expressed an interest in wanting to baby me, and it was like, okay, that sounds like fun. And I was like, I've never felt little, I've never entered little space, so happy to kind of quote unquote role play, but it's never been a headspace thing for me. That's something that other people enjoy, but I don't. And in the right environment, with the right kind of reassurances and safety, I fell very deep into a little headspace very, very quickly and very, very naturally, and it was incredible. It was kind of everything that I imagined it could have possibly been. And there was one particular moment where she laid me down on a floor to change me, and I had a stuffy dragon, and I was just laid on my back, and I was flying this dragon above my head and flying it under the bed and back again. And before I knew it, my onesie was being popped back together, and she had changed me. And there was like that moment where you say it, kind of that fluidity between headspaces, little space and big space. There was a very kind of WTF moment where it's like, when did that happen? Like, I was so zoned out and so in the zone that I almost didn't know it had happened. And moments where my own little space fell to an age way younger than I kind of ever anticipated. So when I started delving into the AB side of the slash, and I was sort of assuming that my little age was, let's say, about 2 years old, I could sort of walk around, I could speak a little bit, I like playing with blocks and Lego and stuff. So I'm probably about 2. there were moments where I may as well have been about 2 weeks old, completely and utterly non-verbal, just cooing and making noises, and so out of it. I guess it was an incredible sensation, and actually that same person enabled me to kind of switch as well. Not kind of switch, but actually switch. And I had never had any switch tendencies in this, and I think this is the wonderful thing about fetishes and kinks, is that you never know when you're going to turn another corner and discover something else that you love. But I became daddy for her as well, so we would switch up between, and our kinks and the dynamics that we enjoyed were unbelievably perfectly aligned, which is quite rare in itself. But I became daddy for the first time, and that connection was genuinely unlike anything I'd ever felt before. And there was one particular moment where it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and she's woken me up wiggling, and she was just kind of dadaing away, and I found myself at a kettle heating up a baby bottle, and I just stood there in my boxer shorts with a muslin cloth draped over my shoulder, getting flashbacks of donkey's years ago when I was doing that for my actual own children, and kind of climbed back into bed, rested her across my lap, cradled her head, and fed her this bottle. And just in that moment, she was tiny. She was my little princess, and I'm daddy, and she is immersed in little space. Like, the softness in her face, the brightness in her eyes, and this is at 3 a.m, right? It was unbelievable. And I realised in that moment that it's not just little space that's achievable, but it's daddy space or mummy space or the kind of caregiver space as well. So, and actually they're equally as empowering, I think, or certainly for me. And I kind of feel for people that don't get to experience that. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are supportive of partners, and they'll, again, I hate the word, but they'll role play the kind of mummy role or the daddy role or the caregiver role. But God, to actually experience that and feel it, having never had any kind of switchy or caregiver feelings before, it really was an unbelievable connection. And yeah, something that really, really took me by surprise. So I know you've spoken in the past about your very first little and that kind of real connection that you had.
When I learnt for that. Yeah.
So you would have felt that as well, but I guess that isn't something that's replicated with clients. I mean, there may be moments. Well, actually, I'll ask you the question: are there moments when you've got a client who you've regressed deeply, and you find yourself falling into a mummy headspace, or for you is it a kind of very professional headspace where the structure and schedule of the session and kind of adhere to that?
Okay, I'm going to have to disintegrate that in different bits.
Disintegrate.
Separate. Yeah.
I'd rather you separate than disintegrate.
I won't disintegrate. I separate. I think a professional space is not necessarily a very structured space that you know exactly what you're doing at every moment. Not in my practice. Mm-hmm. It is professional, but it doesn't mean that I have a schedule that I'm going to have to do this exactly at 5:15 until 6:10. Yeah. I think the professionality is given by the fact that I am delivering for that person and not for my own personal feelings, emotions, sensations. So that is, I deliver. But it doesn't mean that I cannot enjoy it. And most of the structure, apart from the beginning and the ending, that they are very clear for me, is a combination of what I know that they want to experience, the experience that they want to have, together with what I notice in the moment about what needs to be done. Because it's possible that someone comes through the door and says, I want to do this, this, and this. And then when they find themselves into that regression space, they don't want to do any of that.
That's true.
And my mission is to observe and to feel and notice where to lead that to a good place, whatever happens, and to be always interacting, flowing with whatever happens. That's like making music.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great analogy.
If you are a music improviser, you are taking in whatever is around you, whatever you hear, and you're interacting with it. And you, of course, you have your training. You have the things that you possibly will do, or your part of the improvisation that is not that you repeat it, but you know you can go that way. But after all, it's about being present. I take it back to meditation too. It's about being there with that person 120% with them, putting your attention on them, understanding, knowing, feeling. So you have to, I put a lot of my own feelings into this.
So you get to be the conductor. You get to
They come to be led because they want to not to have any responsibilities.
For sure.
And not to have to do anything in particular. So they need that being led. But in my case, it's so gentle that it's not. Sometimes they ask me, but are you strict? I say, yes, I'm super strict. but not in the way maybe you imagine.
Yeah.
Not in the way that I'm going to elevate my voice, I'm going to shout at you. It's also mild. In the end, you are just in that place in which you feel soft and sweet and whatever, and you don't even remember how you got there, but we get to the space.
Sense of being cared for. It's such a loving, gentle, intimate, affectionate kind of quote unquote domination. You know, that strictness isn't in the form of aggression. It's in the form of
you can be very strict with your
guidance.
children and not hit them or not shout at them. And at the very end, you're a very solid person. So I think, of course, it is. What is your relationship? Then you have a commitment. You have someone who is with you in more different ways, and that you expect them to meet you, and it's possibly a lot more demanding. Than if it's a client, you just demand from here to here and you be paid and that's all. But if it's a partner, I want a lot more.
Yeah,
I
for
want
sure.
20 times more, 30 times more. So it's a lot easier to be a client. And also have developed over years, and this is not something I had at the beginning, but I think over the years I have developed the capacity to be there and feel the feelings and get to that space on demand. So it does happen for the other person, because if it didn't happen, they didn't feel the things they are feeling and that they are reporting to me they are feeling. And they can only feel that if that interpersonal part is working.
Yeah.
So I make it work. So this is something very powerful.
I was literally going to use the exact same word. It's a really powerful thing to be able to guide somebody into that and create that space for them to, and I'll use the word again, to allow themselves to feel that and to regress into that and feel that they can relinquish their own responsibilities onto somebody else, even temporarily. Now, one of the things I alluded to in my story was my own quote unquote little age. I think I've said quote unquote about 6 times already on this podcast, but hopefully people understand why. So when people talk about their little age, it's a question you often hear as well, like, what's your little age, what's your little age, or what's your middle age? And I think mostly it's like 18 months or 1 or whatever, but I found that mine, depending on the activity that we're doing or depending on how deeply I was falling into little space, genuinely went from like 18 to 24 months to literally newborn weeks old. So from just general babbling behind a dummy to just being non-verbal and cooing. And I know that some people kind of struggle with that, or some caregivers struggle with that, where it's like, well, if you're a 2-year-old, I'll treat you this way, whereas if you're a newborn, I'll treat you this way. And actual children aren't fluid in that regard, right? It's a very linear process to go from a newborn to a 2-year-old. So do you see that in your sessions where people regress? And I guess this kind of regress deep enough, it could be regressing to a 3-year-old, to a 2-year-old, to a 1-year-old, to a newborn, in the sense that do you see people kind of fluctuate at the age that they're playing? So going from wanting to do puzzles, wanting to play with trains, wanting to play with blocks, to just wanting to be held and get bum pats and coo, and be non-verbal. Like, do you see that from the same client in the same session, or typically do they have kind of one age that they sit at over the few hours that you're together?
Typically, majority of the people, even if they had been parents, don't remember the development of a baby or a small child with exact things, and also the children. A 2-year-old can be very different than another 2-year-old, and another 2-year-old is 2.5 years old now, 45%.
No, I totally get that, but there's a staggering difference between a newborn and a 2-year-old.
So I never got a newborn. I never got a newborn because I think that a newborn, what do you do? I mean, you're in the crib and that's it. I mean, there's not much to do.
Just that, like, wanting to be held, wanting to be stroked, patted.
But I think you can hold a 3-year-old too. So I've never had anyone requesting to be a newborn.
No. Not even necessarily requesting it, but just falling into that headspace where they don't speak anymore. They're just non-verbal.
Yeah, but you can be not verbal. I mean, I think this is fluid, as you say. It's fluid in the children, and the people don't even remember. Sometimes they want to be non-verbal in the same session, and they are not verbal, and then they come back to verbal. So
no, that's fair enough.
But we can't establish. Sometimes I do remind them if they say me beforehand, I want to be 3 years old, so I might remind them a few stages of development or things that a 3-year-old might be doing or not doing, so they can get an idea. Because sometimes they say an age, but they don't really know. Especially if they have not been parents.
For sure.
And they don't know, they just want to be small, I don't know. So maybe, but it doesn't really matter.
Things like age-appropriate toys, age-appropriate foods, drinks out of sippy cups and things like that, whereas somebody that wants to be 12 to 18 months old is probably going to be bottles, softer foods and things like that.
Yes, but still the 2-year-old can have a bottle
of course
at night.
Can, yeah.
No,
I'm not saying there's a hard and fast deadline.
A bottle. There's no deadline for not having any.
Yeah, I'm certainly not implying that. I appreciate the fluidity. I just mean, there are lots of people in the ABDL world that would maybe role play it, or that would consider their little age to be closer to 4 than an actual baby, but they still want to be in diapers and be bottle fed and held and cuddled. So
I would never say you're doing it wrong. It's whatever you feel.
God, if there's one thing we can take from this episode,
you're regressing wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing. There is no right or wrong way of doing it. Whatever works for you absolutely works for you, and keep doing it.
I think there could be a wrong way to do it, and that is if you cannot come out of it.
Granted, but even then, I can't imagine that's. I mean, to physically not be able to come out of a headspace.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, that's a much bigger issue than than
it is a big issue. There is one thing I'd like to tell you about. Over time, have you ever de-regress, like voluntarily?
De-regress.
Coming out of the headspace in a way that you organise or you decide how to, or that takes a bit of time.
I suppose I mean, to use the term voluntarily, I mean, I'd quite happily stay in it, to be honest. So,
I mean, that's not the same that something rings.
I've been dragged out of it kicking and screaming more often than voluntarily. But
something like, out.
So
like
being
that.
snapped out of it because of sorry, when you say, so have I come
the opposite to being snapped out of it.
Right, okay, so just saying I need to be somewhere at 5 o'clock, so at 4 o'clock I'm going to start coming out of it. No, never done it. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. I probably should.
This is one of the most interesting places for me these days, because over time I'm finding with wonderful people who come to see me that time in which you are coming out of the reversion space onto the adult space, if we take enough time to do it, not very fast, the slowest and more conscientiously we do, the more sensations people are being able to keep with them. I mean, because it's a mild transition. It makes sense. So it's a mild transition, and then they come out into an adult space, but it's a different kind of adult space. And this is a space where some people learn something about themselves, because they find themselves in their adult body, but it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. Emotionally, maybe they're not exactly the same. So I started to do only a couple of years ago with a very few people who granted me the opportunity to do this, to extend that coming out time. So instead of making it 5 minutes, we were going to make it 15 minutes, we were going to make it 30 minutes. We're going to have a big amount of space of transition. And then we discover a space that we call the space in between.
Okay.
So that is a space, a mental space, which is not your normal, usual being you, but it's not also the baby, but it's like in between. And maybe in that space they are talking normally, like their adult self, but their body is still in a state of vulnerability, softness. It's very, very special, very special. And when we have a conversation in that space, people don't always react the same. This is particularly good when the person is very stressed out normally, when they have a lot of responsibility, when they have a lot of pressure. So staying as an adult in that space gives them the opportunity to understand that there's another way to be, other than the usual rushing selves or the baby, but that there is a wonderful space in between. And we could have conversations, the most extraordinary conversations in that space in between with the adult, but with that floaty feeling before finishing the session. And that has been fantastic things to witness and to facilitate.
That's awesome.
I'm really fascinated by how that is working.
Do you know, I had a moment very recently, and despite the fact that every podcast I introduce myself as Comfortably Crinkly, which was my Instagram name, my X and FetLife names are Comfy Crinkly because the username character limit is too short. Comfy Crinkly. If anyone follows me on those as Comfy Crinkly, they would have seen these posts already. But that similar kind of mindset, that just feeling generally stressed and frustrated and exhausted and just needing to kind of step back and ease off a little bit. So my followers may have noticed that I recently bought an 8-foot tall teddy bear. It's the Costco huge. I
saw the photos,
Oh, he's sensational. He's absolutely sensational. And I had the house to myself, and I just thought, do you know what? I've got a few hours. I'm just going to relax. It wasn't any kind of immersion or headspace thing. It was just I'm going to relax. So I had a pastel t-shirt on, had a nappy on, and I climbed into the lap of an 8-foot teddy. And it's hard not to feel little, physically and mentally, when you're in the lap of an 8-foot teddy bear.
I have to try.
So that kind, I wouldn't. It's not quite the same as having a kind of mummy figure that can really support it and engage with it, and that you can kind of bounce your energy off of. But actually, just creating that middle space, that space in the middle, where it's just like, I've got a little bit of time. I just want to relax. This is a great way for me to do it. I know it relaxes me, and just having a little bit of soft music on, cuddling into a massive teddy bear, dressed how I wanted to. It was just chicken soup for the soul.
That sounds absolutely awesome.
It was fantastic, and so I wouldn't necessarily liken it to like a full little space with a caregiver partner. But my God, it was just a beautiful moment to live in and to sit in. And I snapped a couple of pictures in the end and posted them online because it was like, this is just like, this bear is the greatest thing I've ever bought. It's like my emotional support bear. He's absolutely massive. And I think just like,
is it taller than you?
Oh, massive. It's 2 foot taller than me.
Oh, wow.
He's 8 foot tall. So 2.4 meters, I think, give or take, tall. So yeah, massive. It's generally one of the best things I've ever bought. And when it comes to props, he's certainly not something I can hide. He lives in my living room, and everyone that comes around sees him and goes, why do you own a massive bear? And my response is, why wouldn't you want to own a massive bear? Just in that moment, I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to relax now. I'm just going to, and we'll use the word again, I'm just going to allow myself to just sit in this moment with no cares and no responsibilities, and just take a few hours for me to do absolutely nothing. And it was sensational, absolutely sensational.
Fantastic.
I guess there's one closing point I'd make, and I wonder if this is a concern for other people. I alluded earlier to the fact that I was little for the first time last year, and I think there's a fear or a worry amongst a lot of people that, you know, when they break up with a caregiver, or you know that you see it on Reddit a lot, like, my daddy's left me, my mummy's left me, I'm never going to feel little ever again, I'm never going to find anyone ever again. And actually, I had an event a couple of months ago, and a dear friend of mine in the community was like, I'm going to look after you all day. So she had me in harness and reins, and she wouldn't let me off a leash, and she was choosing my sweets for me at the pick and mix table and making sure my sippy cup was refilled, and I didn't have a care in the world all day. And we climbed into a little play gym, and she read stories to me, and it just felt wonderful. And there was a moment when she was changing me later in the day that I just, like a click of her fingers, felt myself regress. Just felt my headspace change, my whole body relaxed. I knew that had happened because I was laid on my back grabbing my toes, which for me is like a real giveaway that I've fallen into a little space. And I realised I've had exactly the same feelings with multiple people now. And it's like, it's that reassurance that they came from within me. And it wasn't a case that someone else made me feel this. You know, it's so easy to go, but they made me feel small. They made me feel seen. They made me feel little. They made me feel X, Y, Z. Well, actually, they didn't. I did, and it came from within. And it's the buzzword of today's episode. But I allowed myself to feel that. I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I allowed myself to regress. I allowed myself to relinquish my control and put it in the hands of somebody else.
And you allow yourself to release any shame or any guilt for doing
Exactly that. And I mean, you can definitely argue that when there's two people in that dynamic, then, you know, maybe one of them creates the space and you allow yourself to fall into it. But yeah, just to know that, you know, for anyone out there that's maybe lost a caregiver or lost a partner and feels that they're alone and they'll never find it again, please understand that all of those feelings are within you. And even though in a moment they may be embodied by somebody else, it was you allowing yourself to be vulnerable and to be honest and to be safe that bred all of those feelings. And you absolutely can find it with somebody else in the future, because it's never ever going to leave you. It's never going to not be who you are. And whether it's with a caregiver or in the lap of an 8-foot teddy bear, you can allow yourself to feel those feelings again.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think that the progression after the Crinkle Club should be a personal growth podcast.
Absolutely.
Shall we allow ourselves to finish the episode?
I think we should allow ourselves to finish the episode.
Okay.
And shall we allow our listeners to join us next time at the Crinkle Club?
Yes. I'll join at this, because there's going to be... What episode is this?
7, I think.
Yeah.
Season 2, episode 7.
Exactly. Season 2, episode 7. And there will be more. We will complete this season, we promise.
Oh, there's one thing we never mentioned.
What?
In the hiatus, we crossed a milestone in this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So now, bearing in mind, this all started when me and you had a phone call and we spoke for an hour and you went, we should do a podcast. And I laughed. And then I happened to be passing whereabouts you live, and I stopped in for a coffee, and we had another fabulous conversation. And you said, "No, really, we should do a podcast." And I laughed again.
We should record our normal conversations.
Yeah, we now have a podcast, and we recorded it, and we just threw it into the big nothingness of the internet and hoped that someone would find it. And we just passed 20,000 listens.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
It's amazing. All of you who are there listening to us.
It's fantastic. So the fact that people are listening and people are reaching out and contacting us, and they're sort of sharing, you know, how much they enjoy it and what it's doing for them and all of that is just great. So yeah, to pass 20,000 listens was a real proper milestone, and yeah, it's nice to be back, and hopefully those people are waiting for this episode to drop. So, but no, that was fun, I think.
Yep.
Good stuff. So apologies again for the delay. We'll try not to do that too often, but life can get in the way sometimes. Thank you very, very much for joining us today.
And we'll see you in...
hopefully 2 weeks from now. But yeah, so thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to welcoming you back into the Crinkle Club next time.
Bye.